For my layout today, I'm going to be using a sketch from Artful Delight. It's their December 2012 sketch, and you'll find the link here with the video in the description or also on my blog. And the sketch is by Debbie Burns. I chose it because I have a single photo that I want to scrap, and I think so, since my photo is landscape, I'm going to take the sketch and rotate it around to the side. I could put the elements on the bottom of the page or towards the top. I think I'd like them on the bottom to be a little more bottom weighted, and I'm going to have my journaling actually up in here and move the title more to the middle. Is kind of what I have in mind. I want to tell this a little bit of the story of my stepdaughter and my relationship, and I think I'm going to have 2 columns of journaling. So that's what I sort of have in mind. I needed to pick some papers to go with this, and when I was looking at the sketch, I realized that I had a photo here, and I have a matte picture of paper. So there's one, here's a second, third, fourth, and fifth. So that's how many papers or whatever that I need. I could use ribbon or washi tape or something through here as well, but I've decided to use designer paper. And in looking through my designer papers, I first started with, I always start with the colors of the picture, so I started with some blues and teals. Didn't quite find what I was looking for, and I kept going, and I decided to do something with a little bit more variety of color. And I had these papers that have the teal and the green from the garden scene in it, and they're very summery kind of papers, and this photograph was taken this summer, and my stepdaughter has such a cheerful personality. I thought these would work really well. I needed 5 papers, so I looked at these first, and then I flipped them over on the back and had absolutely the perfect things to go with the photograph in the pink and the green chevron. So that just needed one more. This is from, these were from My Mind's Eye. This is from Basic Gray, and it goes really well from the Paper Cottage collection. So I'm going to make that my 5th paper. Then I need a background. And I looked at some solids, but I didn't have a solid that I really liked. I did have this paper from Stampin' Up. This is just a real simple paper. It's probably some variation of Old Olive that I'm going to use for the background. And then the next thing that I'm going to need is a title. I like to go ahead and get out thickers, or if I'm going to cut my title with my Cricut, know that I'm going to do that. For my title, as I said, I'm going to be putting it towards the center of the sketch. I'd like to do one of those titles where you use a variety of different letters from different collections, or maybe different colors, or at least different shades of one color. I think those really look neat, and I don't do that very often, and I think it'll work well for the concept that I have in mind. The only color, though, that I had enough of a variety of colors of thickers was green. I kind of wanted to do pinks, but I only had a couple of different pinks. But I have a whole bunch of different greens, one of which is one that I have used and used and used. And so I can pull a couple of letters out of here and still get some value out of that set. So I'm going to do greens, and since I have a green background, it means I'm probably going to have to work on the sketch a little bit and pull that title down towards the middle, down closer to the photo over the one of these papers, so that the title doesn't get lost on the background. Now, and the last thing I'm going to need are some embellishments. I'm thinking of using some stamps. I thought that because this was taken in a garden, it's a very girly picture, that flowers would be good. I don't always get to do a lot with flowers with my layouts, but I have this stamp set from Stampin' Up that has done a lot of duty on cards over the years. It is a discontinued set, but pretty much any floral set would work for this concept. Just something that you can punch or cut out. So I'm going to give these a try and see how they work. My backup plan is some silk flowers, so we'll see how those go when I get to embellishments. Now, before I cut papers, I need to decide what papers are going to go in what spot. I'm going to need the photo mat, and then these larger pieces and the smaller strips in the middle. I think that the photo looks good with the colors, but not maybe right on top of them. So I need to use one of the solids for a photo mat. That's either going to be the pink or the green. and I'm going to need to use something for those letters to sit on, and because they're blues and greens, they're going to have to be the pink. So I think that this fifth paper down here on the bottom is going to have to be the pink, which means that leaves this green to be the photo mat. And then I will use the two bolder prints for the center strips. And then the last color, this color that I've marked number 4 that you see quite a bit of it, is probably going to be, this chevron, because that's kind of what's left. So, and it may or may not get another mat, we'll see. But that's where I'm going to start with cutting papers and seeing how they work together, and then we'll come back and start putting the layout papers on the background. Okay, I started cutting my papers, and I have done the photo mat, because that's going to be the size that it needs to be for the photo. Went ahead and adhered that. The rest of the papers, in terms of size, I was just following the sketch and measuring and determining how large my next piece needed to be. It needed to be about 5 1/4 inches, and then I decided on a width of 9 1/2. And I tend to measure, because sometimes I eyeball things, sometimes I measure things. That's when I did a little bit of measuring. That's where the green goes, and I like that. And then for the pink, I made it a little bit narrower, and I made it fairly tall, because as I say, I've got to do something with all of those letters, and I've gone ahead and pulled the letters out here on the side of my magnetic mat, so I could figure out what letters I needed. I had to swap out a few fonts, but I still had plenty of greens to work with. Now, the pink may be more or maybe a little bit less. I followed the premise in cutting these papers that I do with cutting fabric. Cut your largest pieces first, because you can always, usually find the smaller piece out of what's left, but you can't cut a piece this big out of some scraps. So I started with the largest pieces, and then I pulled in my prints, my stripe. And this will get cut down. It's not going to end up being that long, because the sketch doesn't have it going all the way across. And then this one. This one bothers me a little bit. I liked everything except it. I was worried about the green chevron on this background, but I rather like it. It looks good. Kind of really makes the photo pop. However, what's bothering me is this argyle. I'm just not too crazy about it, and it might help if I put a mat. So I pulled some different colored cardstocks. I have a brown. I would cut this down quite a bit. I think that's going to be too much contrast. And then I went for a red, like a light red color to go under that. It's one of the colors in the paper. And again, I would trim that down a little bit. I don't know if I like the matte, or if it may just be better just to leave it as it is. So it's just something to experiment with. I'm going to ink the edges of all of these papers, probably in a brown, probably in Vintage Photo, and kind of see how that works. When I'm inking and I'm not sure whether I want something inked or not, I will start with the smallest pieces, because if I ink those and I don't like them, then it's fairly easy to just go cut some other ones. Okay, so that's what I'll do next, and then it looks like I'm going to be ready for some journaling to come down and get that on the page. I'm liking the distressing so much that I'm not only going around the edge with my distressing tool and Vintage Photo, but I'm also going to be taking the ink, as I've done on these papers, and going right on directly inked paper, which I haven't done in a long time. I don't want it to leave streaks. I'm just going on the very edge, but that's giving that edge a really dark finish, and I think that's going to show up great on my papers. The papers are glued down except for the pink, because I wasn't entirely sure how much of that I needed. I'm liking the papers. The idea I have for the journaling to do 2 different columns, I really like the wording, but I'm not crazy about the white paper just sort of floating there at the top. So I'm going to have to think about that a little bit. I may write Justify the text on the right, or I may put it all into strips. I haven't decided. And also the word friends is in 2 lines, and I think that's going to definitely need to come back into 1 line. So at this point I'm still playing with the design a little bit. I've created just a couple of embellishments, stamped embellishments, but there will be more coming along. So this is kind of where I go with my process, even when I'm working with a sketch, is I do part of it and then I have to step back and think about it just a little bit sometimes to get quite the right look. Working on my embellishments, I'm going to stamp this flower with some red ink, and I'm actually going to add some brown dots using this background stamp, using the kissing technique. So I'll ink up my background stamp in brown. This is Chestnut Rome Color Box chalk ink, and press the red inked stamp onto the background stamp. Pick up the brown dots and then apply that to my paper. And then I'll trim that out for one of the flowers. Okay, I'm very close now. I have my journaling strips still in rows, but I don't have them at an angle. I have them straighter, and they'll be straighter still once they're glued down. I did a light distress on those, not the dark brown, because I didn't really want the edges to really show up. And I added some date stickers up here at the top, just so the eye can sort of travel from that corner down through the layout. And the embellishments I've stamped, and one of the things I love about these basic gray mats is you've got your magnets, and they're great for holding your brads in place, so you can kind of see how the brad's going to look before you commit to it. So I have another group of embellishments down here in the corner, and I got to play with the brads a little bit and decide on the coloring for that. One thing I think I'm going to add is some ribbon going across that I'll tuck underneath the picture. So I just have to do some gluing, and it's about ready to be finished.